Well, call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so for roll call, present in person, we have Mrs. Jacobs and Mr. Tucker. Present on video Zoom is Mr. DeMoss, and present just by audio is Mr. Durnall. And just to have it on the record, Mr. Durnall can comment, but he would not be able to vote on any actions tonight. So we've got a crowd. Any visitors have any comments? No? Okay. So now we need to elect a temporary chairperson to start with the organization. So do we have a motion for or nomination for a temporary chairperson? I would say we could nominate Dr. Sanders. I guess I'll nominate Dr. Sanders. And seconded. Any further nominations? Hearing none, by roll call, Mr. DeMoss.
Aye.
Mrs. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. So now we'll turn it over to Dr. Sanders.
Okay, so at this time, I will entertain a nomination for president of the school board.
I'd like to nominate Dana Kerr as president of the school board.
I'd like to second that nomination of Dana Kerr as the school board president.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, then I'll do roll call. And Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Kerr?
Yes.
All right, that passes. That means I'll pass the gavel back to Mr. Kerr.
Okay, thank you very much. The next would be the election of the vice president. Is there a nomination for vice president?
I'd like to
Nominate Jimmy Durnall.
Yeah. I second.
We have Jimmy Durnall nominated and seconded. Is there any further nominations? Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
and Mr. Kerr is a yes as well. So now we have the election of the secretary. Is there a nomination for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Mr. DeMoss as president, or secretary, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any other nominations? Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
and Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Next is the establishment of the board compensation. So Dr. Sanders, I'll turn that over to you.
Yes, so at the annual board organizational meeting, you must approve the compensation amount the board will receive for the calendar year 2024. The per diem amount has been set at $112 per regular board meeting and $62 for other board meetings such as executive sessions, work sessions, etc. By law, these amounts are based on actually the Indianapolis City Council per diem amount and the per diem amount set by the Indiana Public Schools Board. And so the city, Indianapolis City Council has already approved an increase of up to $150 per regular meeting and $75 for other meetings. Now, as I said, the Indianapolis City Council's already met and approved that. The IPS will meet tonight to set their per diem compensation. So I recommend that the board approve a compensation amount for 2024 set at the maximum amount allowed by state law, which is $150 per regular meeting and $75 per other meetings. The maximum per year remains at $2,000.
Now, is that the stipend? 'Cause I thought it was like, there was a stipend and so much per meeting.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
It's an annual amount, that's the 2,000, and then the per diem, the per meeting, which we'll
Is
know
additional.
shortly.
Yes. It's an addition.
So, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments, discussion? They've left that alone for many years, I think.
They
I don't think
have,
they have.
and I'm glad they're taking some steps. I'm wondering if we want to bite the whole apple at this point, though. I think it would be reasonable to maybe bump it to 125, 130, something like that. I'm a little reluctant to say let's jump to 150, but that's just me.
Any further discussion?
So we're voting on to whatever the IP
Well,
is recommending?
That would be the maximum amount,
Okay,
which was 150.
okay.
Our board could set something less than that, right, Christine?
That's correct, and just to clarify, so IPS tonight, they could decide not to bite the whole apple, as Larry said, and they could say, we're gonna make it 130 for the regular meetings, and if they did, by the way you've done the motion, you'd be locked in at the maximum amount you could per law, which would be whatever IPS does tonight. If they do the 150 and you don't otherwise modify the motion tonight, you'll be giving yourselves 150 for regular meetings and 75 for other meetings. And yes, this has not changed in a very, very long time.
That's true.
Yep, that has been this way for very long. So I just assume we go as it's been moved.
Okay.
Any further
Ready for the vote?
discussion? Hearing none. Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Let's see, the next would be the appointment of school corporation legal counsel. Dr. Sanders?
Yes, I would like to recommend that the board approves retaining Ferguson Law for corporation legal counsel. Christine is very valuable, and Dave too, Dave Ferguson, they're very valuable. Matt and I consult with them often, and so we would recommend your approval.
Is there a motion?
I move that we retain Ferguson Law.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, discussion?
I just think I appreciate the wonderful service and the long history that we have with Ferguson firm, and especially what Christine has been able to do for us for the last couple of years.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I mean, we got excellent counsel that keeps us on the straight and narrow. So we really appreciate all the hard work she puts in and answering questions on the fly all the time. And so it's not easy. So we really appreciate the hard work. So anything further? Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Now would be the appointment of the school corporation treasurer, Dr. Sanders.
Yes, so I would recommend Debbie Tate to continue serving as our corporation treasurer. She is just very invaluable to the school corporation. She's very detail-oriented, and she makes sure that our finances are done correctly.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
The motion for Ms. Tate as the corporation treasurer.
It's moved and seconded. Anything further? I do appreciate the hard work that she puts in as well. We went through a time period where we were going through treasurers pretty fast. And they stayed short times, and so the fact that she's been here and now has good history with us, and knows our history, I think she's invaluable in that position. Anything further? Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. And again, Mr. Darnell, if you want to jump in at any time, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I agree with everything so far.
Okay, all right. Next would be the appointment of the school corporation deputy treasurer.
Yes, and Robin May has served in that capacity for several years, and so I'd recommend to continue Robin to serve in that role as our corporation deputy treasurer.
I move continuing Robin May as deputy treasurer.
I'll second.
Moved
Hey,
and
there's
seconded.
Jimmy.
Oh, hello, Mr. Darnell.
I think I'm here now.
You are here.
Okay.
You are here.
Yeah,
Now, I
kill,
can vote now, right?
kill the phone.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't look real well.
Getting better all the time.
You look pretty good for the shape you're in, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have the establishment of the bonds for the school corporation.
I don't think we.
Oh, did we
voted.
didn't? Oh, okay, sorry.
I may have missed the second. Who did that come from?
Mrs. Jacobs.
Okay.
Okay, all right, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I did have one quick question. Is it, the secretary of the board, is that Robin May also?
Yes.
So she's got a duplicate duty, and that's worked
Yes.
out fine?
Yes,
Okay. Do we need to look at that in the future?
it's worked out well for
Okay.
several years.
Okay. Okay.
Pretty typical in a school corporation of our size. You see people like Robin that hold various
Multiple.
positions because we're not a big enough school or a big enough entity that you might hire a specific person for, that position.
Right, I didn't know if somebody like Susan Shockney would be better, that way you got them separated, segregated to two positions.
Right now, it's just kind of part of what's kind of defined into Robin's role. So we've got a pretty good workflow right now.
Okay, okay, all right, thank you.
Rare that Deputy Tate
Deputy would ever come in.
can't take care of things, so
Okay.
she's kind of a backup for that. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mr. Darnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes,
and Mr. Kerr is yes as well. So now we have the establishment of the bond for the school corporation treasurer, the deputy treasurer, and the ECA treasurer. And we'll go to Mr. Irwin.
Yeah, so by law, we're required to establish a bond amount for our treasurer, deputy treasurer, and ECA treasurer. And so we are recommending a bond amount be set at $100,000 for each of these three positions. This is the typical amount that we always set. And each year, those bonds cost about $400 individually for those three positions. So again, recommending a bond amount at $100,000 for those three positions.
I'll move approval.
a second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mr. Darnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes,
and Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Let's see, now we have the appointment of a secretary to the Board of School Trustees. Dr. Sanders?
Yes, so I am recommending Robin May continue as serving as a secretary to the board. She works very hard at that. We just have an excellent team that we've put together, and I would just like to thank Robin for all that she's done and look forward to her serving in this role for the next year.
Entertain a motion?
Yeah, I'll move approval for Robin.
I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? There's a lot that goes into coordinating these meetings and the paperwork and making sure everything gets done correctly and on time, and so she does work very hard, so we appreciate her very much. Anything further? Hearing nothing, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mr. Darnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Now we have the board appointments. This would be for the Athletic Council, the Ellisville Park Board, the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission, and a legislative liaison to the Indiana School Board Association. Currently, in those, Mr. Durnall is the Athletic Council and Ellisville Park Board. Mr. Tucker is the Redevelopment Commission, and Mr. DeMoss is the liaison to the Indiana School Board Association. These aren't quite as formal as the other positions, but is there any discussion on whom, or someone like to make a nomination? Or I think we should have a discussion first, because Mr. Tucker and I had talked about whether he wanted to continue on the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission or not.
I'm okay with doing that. If I need if I can't get there, like, would I be able to call you, though?
Yeah.
That would be, since I knew
it's
you
a
said you were going to be
non-voting
close to
position
that, yeah.
anyway, so,
Right, yeah, so that'd be fine.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
And I'm happy to continue as the legislative liaison. It's no burden.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Durnall, are you available?
Have both back if I could, yes.
Okay. Of course, you don't have to make that as a nomination, but is there a nomination for these four positions?
I'd like to make a nomination for Athletic Council for Jimmy Durnall, Ellisville Park Board, Jimmy Durnall, Development Commission be Brad Tucker, Legislative Liaison, I nominate Larry DeMoss.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments or other nominations for appointment? Hearing none, Mr. DeMoss,
Yes.
Mr. Durnall,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
and Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Now we need to look at our 2024 regular school board meeting calendar. Dr. Sanders.
Yes, so we approved, or you as a board approved our board calendar for 2024 at our last meeting in December. This calendar has been posted on our website, so I would recommend approval. Oh, well, we already did it, so we don't need to approve that. It's just FYI.
Informational, yeah.
Did anybody have any questions over the calendar? No, it looks like all the times we needed to tweak it here and there have been tweaked, so it looks pretty good. All right, well, if there's no discussion on that, we'll move forward for approval of the corporation bylaws and policies. Dr. Sanders.
So we work with Neola, who helps us to keep up to speed with our policies according to any changes at the state legislature or any changes to state or federal law. We also, when we do those updates, we run them through Christine Bartlett with Ferguson Law. We will present those to the board, those updates to the board in a reading, and then the next month you vote on that. So our policies go through that process, any changes. So we're required by law to approve them all at this organizational meeting, so I recommend approving our policies.
Is there a motion to approve the policies and bylaws of RBBCSC as they currently are in place?
I'll move approval. You're okay. I second.
It's seconded, yeah.
Okay. That is moved by Mr. DeMoss, and Mrs. Jacobs seconded that motion. Is there anything further discussion on that? Hearing none. Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mr. Durnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Now we have the appointment of the local board of finance. And to that, we'll turn to Mr. Irwin.
Yeah, so the school board Serves as the Board of Finance, and I think this goes along with policy 0154 and 0151.1. So you will need to appoint yourselves as the Board of Finance for the school corporation.
And would the Board of Finance meeting would be the organizational meeting as well, right? So this is just establishing the board, Christine, or?
Right, the Board of Finance is gonna meet next Tuesday before your regular board meeting.
Okay. All right. So do we have a motion for the appointment of the local Board of Finance?
I'll move approval.
Okay, and as moving and seconding that all 5 board members will be, have positions on, be members of the local Board of Finance. Is that the way to do it, Christine?
Yes, I think that works just fine, thank you.
Moved and seconded on that. Anything further? Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Mr. Durnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
And Mr. Kerr is yes as well. Before adjournment, we have one more topic, and that would be the conflict of interest forms. And Dr. Sanders?
Basically, my part is to let you know that they're sitting in front of you for any of the board members that need to sign that tonight.
We have those, and discuss who needs to use them. So is there anything further for the board? Any board comments, or Dr. Sanders?
Just our, as we already mentioned, the Board of Finance meeting will be next Tuesday, January 16th. And right after that will be our regular January board meeting, about 6:10 or 6:15.
Yeah, it should only take about 10 minutes, and you'll get some extra information with the board packet for the Board of Finance meeting.
Any comments?
6 o'clock.
Six.
Ms. Jacobs, is 6 o'clock work good for you,
Yeah.
for the most part? Okay.
That's fine.
So everybody's fine with 6 o'clock still?
Aye.
Okay, it's worked out fine for me, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're good, thanks.
All right, yeah, back when it was 7 o'clock, that was kind of
Kind of,
tedious, especially, on the administrators and
right, makes for longer nights.
people that presenting for the Mustang. So,
I wasn't going to say that, Mr. DeMoss.
okay. Well, if there's nothing further, then we are adjourned, and thank everyone for coming tonight. Have a great week.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.